Go.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, trophy hunters of all ages. This is the 34th episode of the Raw Cuts Gaming Podcast.
Yeehaw!
I'm your host tonight. You hear my voice. I'm not all here tonight, but I do not have the Rona, so that's good. I am CJ, a.k.a. the Solo Gamer, a.k.a. the Trophy Hunter. And we're joined, as always, by the Mr. Clothing Optional himself. He's definitely not a noob. Big D. Bigfoot. A.K.A.
Bojangles naked.
the Naked Gamer. Bojangles making an appearance. That is a cat for any of you watching on the live streams. That's not a small tiger. That's a cat.
Yeah, he only fondles the biggest of pussies.
It's gotta be big.
And you heard him there piping in. It is the hot taken, Twitter beef making, getting banned weekly taken, mediocre himself, Woodsy, aka the Mav. Woodsy, nice to see you.
Good to see you too. Glad to be back. More ways than one. So I know we're recording our pod a little late this week, but it is what it is. We're sorry about that. Thanks for having it. And
sorry, Ryan. I hope you're all right.
And for those of my millions of fans out there who are just constantly clamoring at me on Twitter, I apologize for the lack of communication this week. I tried to make a point to a certain someone about a certain hypocrisy in the political sphere, and they didn't like my tweet so much, and they reported it, and it got banned for reasons I still don't know what they are.
The ban hammer came down. Twitter was a nice place. That's why everyone was nice to each other, and it was a wonderful place.
Yeah, well, it was great.
Well, it's good that you're back, Woodsy. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's about it. That's about it.
So we thank you, the listener, for tuning in each and every week for the rarest takes in the gaming podcast here. As always, we bring you all of our own unique takes on all things video games, all while recording and publishing our episodes edit-free. We bring you the podcast to all listening staples. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Google, Breaker, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Anchor. And if you want to watch our ugly mugs for whatever reason, you can either catch the live stream or catch a video on demand on YouTube, Raw Cuts Gaming. So, as was mentioned earlier, we do have a little bit of extra housekeeping to bring to you guys this week. So we are kind of thinking about, we're recording this episode a little late this week. We are kind of kicking around some ideas about how we want to spruce up the show. We'll probably have some announcements for you in the next coming weeks here. Have no fear. We're not going anywhere. We just want to make you, bring you all the best, the content for you guys.
Fully nude.
Fully nude. OnlyFans, So we have some options we're kind of kicking around.
We'll be the first gaming team that's also on OnlyFans.
Yep.
I like it.
That's male.
So
can we also be on? Can we simulcast on livejasmine.com?
Yeah, of course. All the porn viewing staples by the minute.
So look, whatever that. Yeah, look for us in the next upcoming weeks for some announcements. So with all that rigmarole being said, this week is a special episode, which is also why we're recording a little late. We'll be getting into what we've been playing as always. We'll go light on the news for this week. We'll touch on some news topics because some news did happen this week. And this is the infamous Ghost of Tsushima spoiler cast.
Yeah!
So hold on, just real quick. I just want to point out there that when I said livejasmine.com, CJ, he had this facial expression like he didn't know what I was talking about. So one of the central themes of Ghost of Tsushima is honor. And I know that's bullshit. You definitely know what the fuck Live Jasmine is.
I can't hide from you. And then we'll also be getting into trophy time, maybe a little pile of shame, and then we'll see if the fellas have been smoking any meat this week. So, with all that nonsense being said, Big D, what you been playing?
was a little light this week. So, little Rocket League and a lot of the Call of Duty Zombies. So that newer mode that they dropped. That's a little more. I'm trying to think of what it's similar to. The loot with, and then you have the levels that you progress through. You launch new ones, or you can decide to be done. Um, but
Yeah, it's like Left 4 Dead meets the normal Warzone.
yeah, oh yeah, Warzone. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But yeah, it's a really nice blend of zombies and the Warzone mode. Picking up your extra guns all over the place and having to collect different currencies to upgrade your shit. So it's a good time. So that's about all I got. It was like this week.
Woodsy.
I also been playing some of that same mode as D. Still enjoying it. It's pretty fun. I
Mm-hmm.
would like to keep playing more. I think it's a great riff on the traditional zombies mode. So, um, hopped into Ace Combat 7 for the first time in the Blue Moon. I bought some DLC for it and never went back to it, so I wanted to go and check it out. It was pretty good. It was like a new mission, one of the new missions, I should say, and it was like hella long. Um, but yeah, I wanted to jump back into that and give that a go. It was fun. So I failed, which sucks because I felt like I was a ways
Who's
through it and didn't work out. Gamer mediocre, right?
yeah.
um,
Hey, have we
but
talked about the Outriders demo? I can't remember.
we did a little bit, but um, then I also played a game called Adventure Time: Pirates of the Inchidron, uh, which was kind of cool. So Adventure Time is just a normal TV cartoon on Cartoon Network. It's pretty funny if you've never watched it. Give it a go. Um, and they made this little bullshit action adventure game. It's kind of fun. I think the animation's pretty cool as it matches up with the show pretty well. So yeah. Um, and then I just played some Rocket League 2, and I just wanted to talk about one thing, which was possibly one of the most savage goals in the history of Rocket League. I actually did record the play time of it, and I got to figure out on my PlayStation 5 how to edit that video down so I can just upload the moment itself up to the Twitter, where it was overtime of a game. Um, I had an amazing shot on goal. D coming across just out of nowhere, not even intending to hit the ball, just intending to cause mayhem in the middle, possibly take out someone who was guarding the goal. This motherfucker comes in, slaps that bitch with his back right fender when it's 99.985% in the goal. Gets the goal, gets the OT goal, takes the MVP from me. It was just
So good. I'm so good at that game.
What a nice assist, Woodsy.
I know.
Yeah,
It was the best.
exactly.
It was one of the best passes that he's ever
So
had.
savage. So savage. So, yeah, I'm going to try to cut that video down and upload that. But
Can you, if you post it to YouTube, you could use the editor and edit it down, and then put it on the Twitter machine.
Good idea. So stay tuned for that video.
How about you, Siege?
So I played through and I rolled credits on Hitman 3. It's a game I've been looking for. I've been kind of tentatively playing it because I did get kind of locked out of one of the trophies. So I've been going through level by level and getting every trophy in every level. And so far, it's just that very first level of Dubai where I had the problems. Made it all the way into the game, played through all the other missions, got through the winery, got through the last level, which is kind of a little bit of a hidden level. I don't want to touch on it too much. But the last level was really cool. It was a really cool way to end the series. And maybe if D does end up going through and playing through the game, maybe we'll do a Hitman 3 spoiler cast at some point. But had a lot of fun. Adored the game. I am still locked out of one trophy, which is preventing me from getting the platinum of every other trophy along the way. So I'm quite upset about that. I have there's 47 trophies, and the 48th trophy is a platinum. It says you can all their 47 trophies, which is kind of cool. I like when they do clever trophy names. I've kind of touched on that in the past. But I did see that IOI tweet out that in their next patch, they are going to patch and fixes for trophies you're locked out of. So I'm locked out of a trophy that you need to beat all the main storylines in the very first mission. Well, I beat all three main storylines, so I can't rebeat them because it won't trigger the action on screen to say, hey, you beat this storyline. So right now I'm kind of shit out of luck. So I'm hoping that they patch that one in. It wasn't listed as one of the patches, but they said that it's among the patches. So I guess we'll see. We'll see if we get my platinum or not, or maybe I'll have to delete my save file and start all over. We'll see.
Oh my god. Are you gonna do it if you have to do it?
Yeah, I mean, because I have all the unlocks along the way, and worst case scenario is it's in the first level, and I just have to do the three main story missions, so it wouldn't be that bad.
Oh, because it would keep your trophies.
File per story mission. That's right. You did explain that to me. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just it's just you buy, and so I just have to go. It's in the first level. It's not like it's in like the last level. So it's the very first level. I have to redo the three story missions, which shouldn't take long at all. Right. So I guess we'll see. So Hitman 3 rolled credits. We'll go over that later. Maneater. That was a PS Plus game within the last couple of months. You were playing as a shark and you're just eating a bunch of shit. I booted up last night for the first time.
I have that too. Wasn't that a Plus game?
Yeah.
I gotta fire that up too.
You run around, you're swimming around, you're just eating people, just causing mayhem. The storyline is campy. They lean into the campiness, which is cool. So I don't know how sticky it will be for me. But they kind of do a clever way of booting the game off. So Maneater was kind of fun. And then Outriders. I downloaded the demo based on the recommendation from Greg Miller only. I didn't hear anyone else talking about it very much. And I was lazy in booting it up, so I was working through Hitman. And so I booted it up last night, and it said it couldn't connect to the server. So I don't know if the demo's done or whatnot. So I ended up deleting it because like 18 gig download. Right. But Woodsy, I know. And do you want to touch a little more on Outriders at all, or did you kind of say your piece with it? I know.
I don't recall if we talked about it last week or not. I think I did.
I think a little bit.
And I really haven't played it much since then. I liked it from what I played. And we'll see where that game goes. But from what I've heard, the demo was pretty successful with the general gaming public. So good on them. Hopefully they have good fortune and make another quality. Like, I don't know if the game is going to be live for service or what. Actually, I haven't really read into that or what their true intent is. But it looks like it's leaning that way.
And then demos are always great, especially when they carry over your progress.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is replay shit. So.
Well, you could demos. You could max out all 4 classes.
Yeah.
Yep. And be ready to go when the game starts.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that blend of like Gears of War cover and like that Division style looting gameplay. So it's a cool mashup. And then
You're so far away from your mic, you can barely hear you, bro.
Oh shit, wrong mic. All right, continue on.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get into the news. So the Nintendo Switch, more or less, all but confirmed by Bloomberg. What'd you see on this article with the new Switch?
Nothing other than the OLED screen, 4K Ultra HD when docked, smaller bezels likely, 2021 release, which this has been like anticipated for a while. I know we had some rumors that we popped off about a couple weeks ago, so this is a continuation of that. But this basically every news publication out there, from mainstream to just gaming, publicized this article. So this seems pretty official now that it is coming. The Switch Pro, or whatever the fuck they're going to call it. I actually heard another rumored name would be Super Switch, like kind of a play on the SNES.
Dude, that would be a great name for it.
Yeah, I think so too, actually.
Especially since it's not a platform change.
Right.
Right.
And these are the things that have been supposedly confirmed, right? So obviously the games probably aren't going to be 4K Ultra HD, but I think that was a move they made to accommodate people who also want to use it as a streaming box, possibly. So
to make it better for like Netflix and shit for when you have it in the dock.
Right. So who knows though? There are these are the quote the probable confirmed details, I should say, but maybe maybe they'll have a little bit more beefy hardware in there too. We'll see.
Well,
The only thing I'm really curious about is what price point they're gonna, and it depends what the total specs are when it comes out. But what price point are they gonna go for? Are they gonna keep the OG Switch at $299 and try to compete with PS5 at the $400 price point? Crazy.
Nintendo, they just whip their dick around. We'll see. I'm guessing 4, but maybe 350. Maybe they drop the original down $100. I don't know. Who knows? So Microsoft is reportedly upgrading xCloud streaming service with Xbox's backend. Woods,
yeah, Woods and I both found this one.
Oh yeah,
go ahead, Woods. You can start.
Oh, it's fine. Just good. It's going to 1080p from 720p, which is just that's a pretty massive upgrade. And obviously it's been shown that Stadia can't really throw out 4K like they advertise it. So it's nice. They're probably going to, from the sounds of it, try to keep it steady at 1080 rather than resolution drops or this, that, and the other thing. So good for them. Good for the gamers who go for it.
Yeah, and there just was a little comment in there too on and actually we hit on this when we were musing about the future with Stadia and all these things, on how it really does showcase what the future of the subscription service can be. It's Xbox drops whatever's coming after this one, and if you're part of this service, it just gets upgraded on the back end. It's just part of it. You keep paying the same price. And that's the consumer friendly end of it. Obviously, Microsoft's raking it in towards the back half of those deals on the hardware, but it's still pretty sweet. You just keep paying the same price, and hardware gets upgraded. It's pretty awesome.
Very cool. And then the other piece of news coming out from Xbox this week is, it's kind of a bullet point because we've covered it, but Bethesda deal has officially gone through. It's now official.
And they started announcing that they will be making some games exclusive on Xbox.
And they also announced
Xbox and PC, so you're still going to be able to play them with Games Pass Ultimate.
You're right.
Console exclusive.
Right.
And who knows if they'll make them timed, as we've talked about before too.
And they've also said that.
But some games, nobody knows what those games are.
Right.
So
right. And they also.
My bet is they're not going to risk the big franchises because they want to generate the most money off those immediately. But it probably will be like some newer IP that comes out or some smaller AA IP that they have.
Well, the question that I'm wondering about is, okay, yeah, that's true, but these console exclusives are really what move the needle. With Sony having all their crazy console exclusives, will they make Indiana Jones console exclusive? I'm kind of curious to see that.
Right.
Who knows? I guess time will tell.
Damn it.
Yeah, I know. So Sony.
I have Nathan Drake. I'm okay.
Yeah, I know, me too. Sony has unofficially a mini PSVR game showcase coming up with 6 new titles. D, did you see anything about the mini showcase coming up?
No, I didn't.
No, it happened last week. It wasn't even really a showcase. They just decided to drop like new trailers for 6 new PSVR games in like 30-minute increments last Wednesday. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
did any of them look good?
I mean, Doom 3 does. For if you're a Doom person, for sure.
Yeah, I bet that one would be pretty sweet in VR.
Yeah, Song in the Smoke looks like a VR version of Rust, so like your survival game. Zenith, I think that was like this MMORPG in VR, which was kind of interesting. Fract was like a shooter. Out of like a coal mine or some weird.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yep. I remember.
I expect you to die too. That'll be a good sequel because that first one, if you never played, is really fun. It's like a puzzle solving game in VR. And then what was the last one there? And the After the Fall, which is made by the same guys that made Arizona Sunshine. And this looks like it'll be like a Left 4 Dead clone in VR, so that could be cool.
Very cool. So this next piece of news is pretty exciting to all of us probably, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge has been announced. This has the amazing stinger where they're basically playing the original cartoons intro with kind of newer graphics and whatnot. And then it's just going to be kind of a beat 'em up, kind of in the style of the Turtles arcade game, is what I was kind of getting vibes of.
Yep.
God, that's
So
awesome.
I am
It's
pretty,
completely new, which is
yeah, yeah. I'm pretty stoked to play that. But although, from what I was looking like, it was looking like it's going to be a PC only, or you can pre-order on Steam. So
oh,
hopefully they port it to the consoles. But at least
Wow.
I saw it
it
was
will
available on
be.
Steam. So
It will be. I'm
Might be
sure.
time to dust off my old mega case in the garage and get
Right.
moving on a new PC.
Well,
I have a feeling that between that and Bethesda, that someone's going to
there you
need
go.
a PC build here.
Yeah.
the only thing is like Turtles has such a weird IP ownership to it. Where
Oh, it
it
does.
kind of bounces all over the place. Like they had the
Yeah.
Turtles game that came out for PS4, but then it got pulled because of IP rights or something. So
Yeah. I actually, because of that, I bought that game on disc.
I did too. I
Um,
didn't buy it because of that. I just bought it because I was excited for a Turtles game. It's not very good. I played through it and I beat it, um, but it's not very good. But
Mm.
it's
it's
all
since been
right.
pulled. Sorry, it's all right. I had high hopes of platinum in that game, and I played that game for a little bit. And I'm like, no,
No
no.
thanks.
I put a hard stop on that. But Ninja Turtles is one of my favorite IPs, so I was pretty excited to see Shredder's Revenge announced.
Yeah, it
Um,
looks cool. And I'm excited for a new beat. Like I thought about actually suggesting the group that we, because it would be awesome to play beat 'em up with you guys. And like I was thinking maybe we could just get Streets of Rage 4, which was also apparently really awesome. That just came out like last year. So um,
I'm down.
yeah, but this is an
it's,
awesome beat 'em up coming out too.
I'd
So
be down for this, yeah.
yeah,
So another piece of news that came out is Marvel's Avengers had some kind of a little, I don't know if a controversy is the right word because it wasn't quite that strong, but they are kind of
They're
making
batting
some
it around
change.
internally.
Yeah,
Right.
they're batting around the idea of going free to play, but people are kind of gleaning that because they have this whole big change coming how you can upgrade and level up your character and making it more of a grind than what it is, which is kind of pissed a lot of people off. So,
right.
um, but
I
it's also go ahead.
no, I just like of all the shit that's come out and the copying of Fortnite in the battle royale style and all of these other things, like you would have thought Marvel and its properties would have been all over that model of you need to buy the season pass in order to unlock these special costumes we have for this season, because if you have the whole roster of your Marvel guys, as you guys all know, there's infinite costumes for all of them, just like in Spider-Man. And
Right.
they could have just milked that shit forever and ever and ever, and the game could have been free to play if you want. You had the base characters with the base costume, and if you want other shit, you gotta pay. And that model would have worked fine, but instead they went for the whole give me $50 for the fucking game and then continue to pay after that. So
Well,
it's
I
kind of
think
on
the
them.
biggest problem with that game is the end game, though, right? So that's the thing that, like Anthem, there's nothing. It's fun until you beat it once.
Right.
Well, I think it was kind of caught in this middle ground of what do they want this game to be. It sounded
Right.
like they wanted it to be this, games as a service game, but they also wanted it to be this awesome storyline game. So they're kind of caught in the middle and in development hell and never really found out what they wanted the game to be. So
Yeah. They tried too much to do both.
yeah. And then Woodsy threw a bunch of these news stories in here, and he really kind of threw in the last story well placed. But
I
he
like my organization and my slick transition.
this was once you did organize something well. The real Japanese island of Tsushima has been given a prestigious award to two senior members of Tsushima development team. They're ambassadors, right?
Yeah, they're now officially ambassadors of Tsushima Island.
Did this have to do with like all of a sudden after this game came out, like all of a sudden there was like crowdfunding and all sorts of other stuff to like help them out? Like, is this related to
Yeah, well,
that?
I think it brought just again a a general attention to the island and its history too. And I feel like tourism is going to go up there. Like, regardless, there's enough people who played this game that some of them are going to be curious to go there.
Yeah, I kind of want to go and like jump off a cliff and drive a katana through someone from up top.
Yeah, I would too. That'd be dope as fuck. So
why not?
Stand on the beach in my
just line people up down there to be assassinated.
Right, in the rain, lightning storms all around. Just real dramatic and shit.
Well, Lauren's there just like as your picture mode or whatever.
She's filming with the phone.
All right, now freeze.
Get all those filters, baby. Get all those filters.
Do the black and white one. It'll be very dramatic.
All right. So, with all that being said, that is going to dovetail into our spoiler cast. So, all you millions of fans out there who are listening to this and have not played through and beaten Ghost of Tsushima, here's your warning: the spoiler wall is up, is down, and everything's on the table. So, let's get into what we thought about the game initially. D, what were some of your initial thoughts on the game?
Let's see. First diving in, or are you looking for overall?
Let's get into first diving into the game. We'll kind of come back and then we'll kind of go overall. Then we'll go through some of the various story beats we kind of really want to touch on. So, well, what did you think when you first booted up the game and started playing through it?
So let's see. I knew I was in for that like Far Cry, Assassin's Creed type feel where you kind of wander around and unlock shit. So there was that. Like everyone else, I was very pleasantly surprised at how, I don't know how well they did it later on, but definitely in Act 1, as you were getting your bearings underneath you, each thing they were trying to have you do, quest line, or even just the getting to know it activities, kind of led you to the next thing. So you were kind of nearby, which kind of encouraged you to just walk or like ride your horse over there quick. And I thought that was a nice touch. But like I said, in Act 2 or 3, that kind of faded. But yeah, the gameplay is super smooth, right? The combat, I know you hit on some shit with being able to hit the guy you want all the time. I can see where you'd be like that. There are times when I miss the dude in combat, and you get fucking annoyed because you were going for a combo or whatever. Whatever, and you're goddamn slicing the wind as you go. but no, and then like Woods always says too, man, the art and all that shit, super apparent right from the get go. Like everything looks super awesome. The details on the cherry blossoms on the trees and just kind of how they make everything pretty seamless as you're wandering around. It's very awesome.
What's the initial thoughts on Ghosts?
Yeah, that intro, man, what an intro.
Exactly where I was going, yeah.
Super good, like, really good setup for, like, here comes these Mongolian invaders, and shit has just hitteth the fucking fan. The beach fight was miserable. It was so cool, though, too. It was just, like, the graphics and like seeing the threat that was the Mongolian invasion, and obviously it very quickly it became an emotionally driven narrative. Jen seeing persons you cared for being slaughtered by the Mongolian invaders, and then and
that first like the very opening, where you fight the final boss, like right out of the gate with all the mechanics enabled, and you haven't played shit before.
Right.
That, and then also, for me, it was that very opening scene. Like I think I was on stream with you guys, on mic with you guys, which I rarely am if I'm playing something like that, and the dude gets decapitated, and I like gasped. Yep. I'm like, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that was striking. That was when you knew, okay.
They're not fucking around here.
That's what this game's about. Yeah, and then you get up to the bridge. Homie comes out and does not go well. And then you're like, okay, well, here's the big bad I'm gonna have to defeat. Like, there's not another guy. This is the dude.
Right.
from there, you kind of you ride back to get your bearings. Yuri, right, takes care of you, helps fix you up. You get a new horse, which we'll discuss in a second. Um, and then for me, it was that opening, just like where the title credits come in, and being on the top of that field overlooking the lake, where it's just like, and then navigating to that point via the wind, and then just the sun setting on the other side of the lake while there's these yellow trees, birch trees all around. Just the beauty of that fucking game. From that moment, I was completely hooked.
I totally agree. I was going to touch on the beach scene also. But one thing I always find interesting with how games decide to set themselves up is how do you set up a game when you are an adult samurai and you have all this knowledge of a lifelong of training, but they don't want to make you super overpowered at the start of a game. How do games go
Right.
about setting off on your path?
Right.
And what I thought,
Usually, you're right. That's a really good point because usually it's very generic. Like they strip you of all of your powers arbitrarily, or all of your weapons and armor arbitrarily.
right, yeah. So it's always this balance of how do I make you not? So it's the same problem you'd have in a superhero game, right? When you're playing if you're playing as Superman, how do you make yourself not completely invincible right off the nuts, right?
Right.
So you go through this battle, you have some of your powers initially, and you get knocked down. You can beat the Khan at the mission, but then it's like an auto kill basically if
Right.
you do go through. I didn't get very far. I got maybe a quarter of his health down or something. But they strip you of everything. Like they knock you down. You are saved by your spot on there, but you lose your weapon. You eventually get it back, but it's dulled and all that shit. So you have to work to upgrade it, and then you learn things over time. So I thought the game really did a strong opening with that. That was really noticeable for me. And then for me also, the beauty of the game, you guys both touched on it, was when you first get the opening, like you play through quite a couple hours, I think, even of just the intro per se, and then you get that first intro where it says "Ghost of Tsushima" in big letters, and it's like the scene everyone's seen when you're riding in the horse and you reach down, you touch the flowers or the flowers and whatever. It's just like it's a breathtaking game. So yeah, initially I was same thing as you guys, just blown away by it. I guess let's save our overall thoughts for when we get to the end of it, because let's get through some of the stuff here.
Definitely.
So major story beats. Now I tried to structure this somewhat together, but we need to start off with the most tragic moment in the game in my mind, the death of your horse. This comes at the end of Act 2. You're escaping capture. We'll kind of get that a little bit later on. But you're riding along with your horse, and your horse is limping along. Were you guys, when you pick a horse initially, Dee, what'd you name your horse, and which color horse did you pick?
I copied you unintentionally. I also picked the black horse, and I also named it Nobu.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's fine.
What'd you go with?
So I also did do the black horse as well.
We all picked the same one. That's hilarious.
Just because, so why would, like, if you're gonna pick the black horse, are you not gonna pick Shadow as the name?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
I was just kind of surprised too that it chose to kill him off. Like it was one of those where it surprised me just because it gave you that big fucking warning.
This is the horse you're gonna have for the entire game. Make sure you pick the right one.
I know. I had to quit out of that menu and look at the other horses one more time. I was like, oh shit, I can't pick a different horse.
Well,
like, that is still the prettiest horse.
The worst is Well, okay, and I did. That was actually the only thing in the game I ever cheated on. Was immediately I looked up on like Game Packs or whatever, where it was like, okay, which of these horses is the best? And I was glad to find out there was no difference.
Yeah.
So,
Did you?
It was just the black one was prettier.
The one that looked the best.
Did you have it spoiled for you that the horse died there when you looked it up, or no? Okay.
No.
Good. Yeah,
No.
I'm
surprised.
That was traumatic. Like you go through and you're going through and you escape the mission. The horse gets shot a couple times in the butt, and you're like, oh, thank God I got out of there. And then he kind of like slowing down. Like, well, he's just gonna be tired from running forever. And then he goes down, and it's like, because the game does such a good job. Like it's not like
Jin was also like fucking gone, right? Like he had
yeah,
arrows in his back too.
right,
He was like not. I think he was
Yeah, it passed out, right?
unconscious when that
yeah.
scene started.
And you know, you go through and the horse dies, and so much of the game is like this. And what I love about this game too is this is untold kind of storytelling where it's like you're sleeping on your horse, and then the horse will nudge you, kind of you're like all right, calm down, you know.
Right.
So you really build this bond with the horse, and it's the only like I mean, you have various friends and things, but it's the only like place where Jim kind of feels comfortable being himself, and he talks to the horse and everything. So
And the
man, that
little cute
was
scenes after missions where he's like waking
exactly
up
yeah.
and sleeping on the horse, and the horse like licks his face to get him up.
Yeah, and the horse he's like, let's go, and the horse like kind of like does like the big like I'm getting my ass up now and
Right.
everything. So yeah, that completely caught me off
Yeah,
guard.
he was like your only real true companion. Like it.
Right,
it's-
exactly. Yeah, these other
Yeah.
people kind of come and go throughout your time.
Right.
But
Well,
the horse
plus-
it's got
The other people aren't using. I mean, it's like a mutual relationship. It's like, but with the horse, it's just like, yeah, man. Like
it's a companion.
he
Yeah.
is kind of your only friend.
Right, exactly. And I was
And the worst then was getting to after you get off that janky ass fucking bullshit intermediary horse you have to go on, diseased fuck, a rat of a horse.
Yeah, it was a nasty.
You finally get to repick from a new stable, and I was like, sweet. I'm just gonna pull like a beer fest and get landfill too. Just go for this black horse, David Nobu. It's fine.
It's fine. It's like he never left.
Oh, that was my
Nobu
opinion. I was
2,
like,
Nobu 2, you're so much better than
If my
Nobu
black
1.
horse back, I can name it Nobu. It's landfill too. It's totally fine.
I tried to do
No.
that too. I tried to do that too. So what horse did you guys pick?
Pissed. I was just like, God damn it! I'm like, I can't go with this white one.
I went with the white one.
I gotta
I
go
went
with
with
I
the
did
gray
too.
one, and then I was like, this gray one's fucking ugly as shit.
I know
After
it was.
playing for like 2
It
hours,
was, I know.
I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna go back to that save load. I had to find it in my online save load.
Oh shit! You went
I
hard
was
in
like,
the
I'm
paint.
not rolling around with this ugly ass gray horse either. So I went back and picked the white horse, and I was like, I guess I'm going to this fucker.
Did you know that you can actually keep that janky ass broken down horse?
Yeah, you can. Fuck that little bitch.
I didn't know you
That,
could.
that horse had coronavirus before coronavirus. Are you
Yes,
kidding
it
me?
did. So yeah, so the horse was a traumatizing moment for I think all of us.
Yeah, I think they could have done a better job transitioning to that other horse and trying to build like at least something back. That would, I guess, it would probably fall on my complaints or whatever section you had at the end. But like Woods was hitting on, like I don't even remember the fucking second horse I picked and what I named it because I didn't give a shit because it was Act 3 and I
Right.
barely had like another hour with that horse, so it was just kind of like. I would almost rather them have you need to pick a series of jank horses from then on out. Like it didn't matter that you had to pick a whole new one.
Right.
Or they could have just saved that for post end boss battle, right? The final
Right.
battle, final choice.
Right,
They've been
right.
like, hey, for now if you load back in here, we need you to pick a new horse, and I would have gotten it. But it
Right.
seemed kind of silly to pick that new
Right.
horse.
And it didn't have at that point, to my memory, either those kind of like nice little like. There's a lot of instances in this game, right? And you hit it exactly on the head, CJ, where you said there's a lot of like narratives that are being told throughout it that either A, you're making yourself because of like the invisible hands of the game
Yeah.
driving you in a few different directions. But then also just like it was nice how subtle it was, and the not all this fucking heavy exposition, and well, and that's why that horse death became, in my opinion, actually more impactful, is because they didn't have this narrative that they were shoving down your fucking throat.
That's true.
Right.
You kind of created your own relationship with this horse in your mind.
Right.
So.
It's true. And then, like CJ said, it was all the subtle stuff because there was no narrative, right?
Not
It was
really.
it was the waking up with it and the cutscenes.
And I missed that.
the-
I missed that about the second horse. You're right, Dean. That's what I was getting back around to. Is like,
Yeah. They should have just had the jank horses. Like you just every time you had to call it or whatever, it was just some random jank ass horse.
Roach.
Do landfill 2. Novo's back.
Should have had like a limp and shit, so
Yeah.
that you would have remembered it.
Right. He's got a little scar that's 2 in his back.
I carved that in there myself. Fucking,
Never forget you, landfill 1.
fucking
So,
not Nobu.
So the game is broken up into kind of 3 acts, and we were going to kind of cover each act individually, but it's been a little while since we played the game, so let's kind of go over some other major story beats that we hit on that kind of seemed important to us. Meeting up with the uncle. So the way the story breaks out is, you kind of become a ward of your uncle. He kind of teaches you how to become a samurai. I thought that some of the flashbacks were pretty cool. You have this samurai way instilled in you, and then if it's not enough of like, hey, this is how I want to be a samurai, there's actually flashbacks as to how you learned that. But your uncle is captured in that initial invasion, and then he's gone, and your whole part of Act 1 is to get back to your uncle and save your uncle. Well, I thought that it was going to drag that out further, but at the end of Act 1, you meet up with where he's at, which I thought was a little weird. Where all of a sudden the con was just randomly gone from where he was holding the uncle.
Yeah, it was like he retreated.
Yeah, well, he went somewhere else, and it was like a few scenes before he was like with the uncle, and then you get there and all things like, oh well, I went away, and you're like, well,
like he almost kills you on the bridge, and then he retreats.
It was weird.
Well, I didn't think it was weird that he retreated because you had like a little bit of a force going behind you.
Yeah. Well, I meant like the initial one where.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, but then he why didn't he take the uncle with him?
And that's why I thought it was weird.
That was the only odd thing.
But they played it off like he went to go somewhere else to do something else versus like retreating. It was just it was like sudden. It'd be fine if it was like more narrative based, and maybe I wasn't paying enough attention. But I feel like
it was very Austin Powersy.
Right, exactly. So,
I'm just gonna leave it here and assume it all went to plan. What?
Yeah, exactly. So, he Irish goodbye the uncle. That was kind of weird, I thought. But you do meet back up with your uncle at the end of Act 1. So what are you guys kind of thoughts of meeting up with the uncle so quickly?
Oh, well, there was another just surprise, which was great, like you mentioned. I too thought that it was going to be very Mario-esque, and we needed to find our princess in another castle until we beat the final boss, and then Uncle was going to be in there. But no, you get to meet this bitch right away, and then figure out how much of a bitch he is. And it is a little bit of a downer because, like, that whole first act, everyone pretty much assumes that Jin is in charge, and you just kind of start thinking to yourself as the boss man, and then Captain Bitchface comes back there at the end of Act 1, and all of a sudden he's in charge, being a bitch, and
Jesus Christ.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I like the uncle.
Fucking bitch. We'll get into more of that later.
Yeah. What I thought that kind of was interesting was Uncle was all about honor. That was the whole samurai way, and it's very ingrained in him. So when you go to save the uncle and you're kind of doing some of these less than honorable methods of killing people, right? Like he's like, hey, you saved me, but what you're doing is not cool.
Right.
Yeah. And there's kind of this tension that kind of builds throughout Act 2, actually.
Yep, and Act 3. Yep.
So
it crescendos in Act 2 between those two.
It does.
That's right.
In Act 2.
My fault.
So, I think it kind of, seeing how the story progresses eventually, I think it kind of makes sense of saving the uncle when you did.
Yes.
Because Act 2 is all about the whole split up, essentially.
The conflict of ideologies.
Exactly. Yep, exactly right. Yep.
And the uncle's bitch refusal to understand that there were really two options. We could all die with honor, or we could win. and those were really the two avenues.
That brings up, I think, what in my opinion was a very understated concept that game was presenting is what there is the samurai code, but what does it mean to be honorable? if 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 being honorable is doing whatever it takes to save as many of my people and my land as possible, and the samurai code prevents me from doing that,
Then I
then
need a new code.
what good is it
Right.
from an honor system perspective? And it's Jin goes through a battle of it's I mean it's there's a lot of complex morality questions that are
Yes.
asked, and he he goes through a battle of the lesser of two evils effectively the entire game.
Yes.
I think that's
As does his uncle in some regard, but um, yeah, well, I mean, we keep talking about that, but Act One was the largest act of the game.
Yes.
yeah, but yeah.
Um,
By far.
so
I think one thing I want to add to that was, I think what the game does a good job of not beating you over the head, but subtly doing it. I mean, it's a little more obvious in the whole relationship with the horse, but the hot springs. You sit on the hot springs, you have this time to reflect. And you
mhm.
have this little internal dialogue of like, these various
And that's
things that
you.
right,
Again, that's another self perpetuated or self created narrative. You, your interpretation of what you should reflect on, your interpretation of a word, and then creating a haiku about it. Like that's how I personally really connected to Jen as a character.
yep,
Starting in
spot
Act
on.
One.
So you save the uncle in Act One. Also, I don't remember if it's in Act One or where exactly it is, but you meet up with the Straw Hats. You have
That's Act One,
that's
Also
Act
Act
One.
1
So,
because you have to put the gang back together.
oh yeah, yeah. So yes, you're right. You're right. Yep. So uh,
and that's where
Ryuz,
the first conflict with
Ryuzo,
what's his face
Ryuz.
happens at Act One
Oh,
before you
that's
reach
right.
your
That's
uncle.
right. That's right. Yeah, you're right. Because it's yeah, so,
That's why the Khan retreated because he left him there to take care of it.
Ah, yes. He left Ryuzo there and assumed everything
Right,
went to plan.
right.
um,
What?
I still don't
What?
get why he didn't bring the uncle with him. Um, so Ryuzo is your friend from back in the day. There is, this kind of friendship that had kind of grown apart over the
Yeah,
years.
rocky undercurrent.
It is a rocky undercurrent. So exactly right, D. So initially you kind of meet back up like, hey, friend, it's all good, and all of a sudden there's kind of this rocky, and then eventually it kind of comes out. Um, Eventually that he's been jealous of you and angry with you because there was this battle when you were kids, and whoever won got to go on to be a samurai, and he felt like he should have Jin should
Because
have let
Jen was
him
already a
win.
samurai, so he should have just let him have it.
Right.
And
And
Jen wanted to do the honorable samurai thing, which was to fight to his
Honorably. Yep.
best
exactly.
ability.
Um, so and that was part of it, and then so then you kind of you get all your various NPCs back, and I'm kind of specifically avoiding NPCs because I want to save a lot of these NPCs for their own section because I think that's where the
Yeah.
game shines some of the
Oh, yeah,
most.
big time.
Um,
Each one
but
had a very awesome story.
oh my god, that I mean we touched on a bunch of parts we love, but that's one of the things I love the most with the game.
Yeah.
So we'll get to that in a hot minute here, but um, you go to take on the where you think the con is, and Ryuzo doesn't show up, and you're like, well, shit, he let me down, and then you actually end up fighting him in the first time.
Not only Ruzo, but none of the Ronin.
None of
Ruzo
the
had
Ronin
promised
show
that
up,
the
right?
Ronin would come. He helped you with the
Yeah.
setup missions leading up to the castle raid, and the Ronin were going to be there to back your ass up, and they
They
weren't.
never showed.
And then he's actually there, and
The girls never came.
and you fight him, and that's where some of this rocky undercurrent kind of makes it head. So, but
Well,
then
yeah,
Ryuzo is kind of a
not
very
yeah.
interesting character. I don't have a bullet point from down below, but maybe I want to circle back to him because he kind of gets screwed around in the game too, where you have these various you go through various emotions with that character too. Most of the
Yeah, man,
NPCs
that was fucked up. Like,
are so deep,
Wait, which one? Ryuzo?
Yeah,
yeah, like where he goes from the initial point blank betrayal to then having to burn his own people alive. And
right, exactly,
works to the
spot on.
con.
Yep.
Yeah, but if he wouldn't have been a bitch in the first place, he wouldn't have been in that situation.
I
realm.
know, but I know, but it gives characters complexity
He's
where
a
most.
character that deserved everything he had coming to him for betraying his people and and
Yes.
and going with the Khan, but he was also sympathetic in his suffering, in my opinion.
Ah.
Exactly right, because I mean, part of the reason he did it was because his people were starving, and he felt the only way he could feed them is to side with the person he thinks would win this battle, and
See,
that's
and
Well,
this
why.
is where I disagree. I feel like if he would have helped out in that first battle, Jin would have gave him some crackers and shit to give to his friends so that they could eat, and then he wouldn't have had to burn anyone. So you guys
I,
may be sympathetic towards him. I
you're
did
not,
not feel
you're not
anything
wrong.
for him. I felt bad for the people that got burned alive.
See, that's the thing. You're not wrong at all, and that's I think one of the beautiful things about this game is
Yeah,
there
it's
was
true.
never any clear right or wrong.
No, it's always great.
Really, at any point in this game,
It's
it was
true.
always moral gray area, and and did like yeah, of course he was wrong, but being forced to burn your own people, betray your kin, kill who was your best friend, feeling that you have to betray him because you don't have faith that he can do it because the samurai code won't let them do what they need to do. All this other shit, which is
Mhm.
really a weird thing that I never really thought about till just now. Is like he made it apparent that he didn't think the samurai, because of who they were and the code they lived by, were capable of
Oh, of
implementing
helping.
the military strategies
right,
employed by the Khan. And
He was just picking the winning
Jin
side. Yeah.
that's what he thought he was
weirdly and
doing.
ironically justified those beliefs that he had. So
Yeah, I
True.
mean, we don't have to go much more
All
into
true.
reviews other than that because that's exactly the points I wanted to hit on. A lot of characters, there's a lot of depth where that's not seen in many games. So yeah, so the Ryuzu betrayal is another big story point. Now, um, playing through Act Two, there's kind of that undercurrent between you and your uncle where you kind of meet up with him in various missions and you kind of slip further and further away, and it all kind of comes to a head in Act Two where your uncle sees you act a certain way. He watches you behead someone. He watches you use poison. We'll get into how you get to that poison later.
Mm,
Um,
poison.
but he sees you're fully gone, or in his mind, fully gone of being a samurai, and he strips you of your samurai status and basically imprisons you. Which
not
was
only that, right, but he after the end of Act One petitioned the shogun to adopt him officially in the aristocracy order of the samurai so that he would take over his clan upon his own death. And he had received approval of the shogun with the adoption papers and had them
right. That's
with
right.
him.
Yeah,
And then
and burns him. Yeah, you can get
burnt
into
him.
that. I mean, this is spoiler cast. It's all on the
Yep.
table. So yeah. So D, what were your thoughts on? I know you feel a certain way with the uncle, um, but getting all that stripped and burning the papers and everything,
Yeah, when he bitch burnt the papers with his.
and wanted to send you to, and he did come to bitch burn those papers, and sentence you to death too.
I wanted to adopt you, but my bitch ass is gonna put these papers in the fire instead. Oh, my bitch ass. Oh man,
That's a good
my
point.
God, that's. I'm gonna tell you guys, when I fully became encased in the bitch camp for Uncle Bitch, it was that moment right there. The dude took those papers, put them in the fire. I'm like, man, this guy's a fucking bitch. Like, I hope that at some point I get to cock slap this bastard. I understand he was under the Shogun pressure and all this other bullshit and blah, blah, blah. But family's always family, guys. And he had to understand that the Mongols were winning the war and holy shit, like this guy's actually making some progress. Maybe we should just at least hear him out. Maybe. Just like listen to him for like a half a second. I identify with Jin quite a bit, unfortunately. So I side
That's what the game
I
wants
side
you to
with
do.
him. Yeah, I know, but just personally connecting with just ideologies and how that all fits in with your family and all that other bullshit and logic, right? Like, because I'm a logical guy too, and so like from Jin's whole point of view of like like I hit on before, right? It's well, I could do things the way that I've been told, and we could all die, or I could do things this way, and we got a shot. And then just to watch the uncle just continually, like, even as you build towards the crescendo and everything too, like he wants to fucking do like the British and just march his fucking people out there to get fucking catapulted by the arrows and everything. And it's like seriously, like that's all that, like, you're just gonna let your people just wander out on that bridge and fucking die, huh? You fucking bitch. Like, I just oh, the uncle.
Woodsy. And Woodsy. Getting your samurai strat. What'd you think of the kind of the end of Act 2?
So speaking of organization, we should have actually touched on the straw that broke the camel's back for Jin. That kind of made it a decision point for him that he was going to do any and everything necessary to defeat the Khan, and that was the murder of Yuna's brother Taka.
Oh yeah, goddamn, yeah, that sucked too. I felt something with that too.
And we can talk about that, but that was the launching pad for Jin to undertake the actions he took at the end of Act 2, which subsequently led to him getting his samurai title stripped, his uncle burning the adoption papers that were approved by the Shogun, and his uncle turning his back on him effectively due to the honor code.
Because he basically was the ghost after that one.
His uncle was under a lot of pressure at that juncture, right? He had just petitioned the Shogun to allow for him to have this dude adopted. He had also petitioned the Shogun for reinforcements from the mainland, so a whole number of other samurai and heads of samurai clan from the mainland came over to Tsushima to help, who were there watching this all transpire. And at the same time, as we discussed previously, at the end of Act 1, he let Jin know where the line was, and he kind of told him to cut it the fuck out. And at the same time, I completely feel that Jin was completely justified doing what he was doing. Even more so, I believe his uncle is ultimately wrong in that argument, but it's not 100% wrong. I don't know what percentage it is or isn't, but it's definitely not all the way wrong. So, there's just a morality about, that scene from Game of Thrones, like the Red Wedding, right?
Right.
Are those actions justified under if so, under what circumstance?
Right.
And were those circumstances? And I don't know. I don't know if I don't know the answer to that question.
So you hit it spot on there with Yuna's brother's death, because there's a mission you go on to go after the Khan, and you get captured, and
no, that was you. Remember, he had decided, he found out where he was going to be. He was going to try to assassinate him and end it right then and there.
Yeah, so Yuna, having just been reunited with her brother, and that was her whole storyline, is reuniting with her brother, and we'll touch on that in a little bit here. Her brother Taka, who is this great blacksmith who had been captured and had been blacksmithing for the Khan. He decides to come with you because he totally believes in you as the ghost and wants to back you any way he can. He's not a very good fighter, but you decide
he wanted to be brave.
He creates your ghost armor at the end of Act 1 and gives it to you.
He wants to be brave. He wants to be part of it. He doesn't want to just run away like Yuna wants him to do.
Yep, exactly. So he comes with you. You both get captured.
Tiger Mom.
And tied up, and so then Taka's given a choice. Hey, you can be set free. All you have to do is just kill Jin, and that's it. And he's like, nope, I'm not going to kill Jin. I'm going to live by this honor code, and this guy, I'm backing him. Taka gets beheaded right in front of Jin, and that is the straw that breaks it back. So that was another big moment.
And weren't they all handcuffed and shit right there too?
Jin was. I don't remember if they re-handcuffed Taka or if he just beheaded him. you know. But he's,
No,
he's,
because Taka turned around and tried to kill he confronted the Khan, is what happened.
yeah,
Taka turned
That's right.
around and
Well,
then
Taka wasn't handcuffed.
and then he slashed him down to the ground and then chopped his fucking head off.
yeah. Um, yeah. So, and then you go through the mission, and all of a sudden, Yuna shows back up, and that's where that whole thing kind of starts popping off. But that was another huge moment, kind of inflection
And it was
point in the
crazy.
story.
That was the first time I was like,
Yeah, there's some shit going down here.
that was when I personally, throughout my narrative playthrough, was like, okay, I have to do whatever is necessary with my control of this video game character in this motherfucker's life. Like,
I'm gonna kill this bastard.
because
I'm gonna
that
go.
was again, that was one of the things that I thought they did so well with this game, was not only this lack of like forcing you down one uh, path of stylistic combat, whether you're going to use the ninjutsu skills or whether you're going to use the noble samurai, just
Yeah,
fucking
face to face.
fighting, face to face fighting, and the samurai path was harder. It was purposely harder, and and I have some complaints about the stealth action. It was a little too samey to like Assassin's Creed or what have you, but it definitely was easier to dispatch foes and quicker, which
Way
is the
quicker.
real battle. Um,
Yeah, because even compared to perfect parries and shit, a lot of people took like 2 or 3
Football.
of those, even though they were very powerful.
right.
Yeah.
But I had been upgrading predominantly my samurai skills up until then, learning all the stances and this, that, and the other thing, and upgrading my knowledge of them and the combos that you could pull off.
Oh yeah.
Before I really started addressing my ninjutsu skills. So
Yeah, those were definitely last for me too.
Me as well.
I notoriously hate stealth games. That's not my style, boys. Running and
maybe
gunning.
not for you. I don't know.
Maybe not. Maybe for me.
Name I me.
Maybe it would sound like a special one-off spoiler cast for that one. Yeah. So I agree. So then in Act 3, kind of the crescendo of Act 3, you get outcast to the northern part of the island, and you eventually kind of build yourself back up and start getting some of the band back together.
Get your piece of shit non-horse you love horse.
Yeah, that's where the horse dies at the end of
The
that.
jank ass horse.
You get the jank ass horse, and then you get the
Just won't let me have
Nobu
2.0,
too.
dude. Well,
Should have taped some fucking sticks onto Nobu.
But
and
it
thrown him
was
into that
it was
final
very
battle.
it was very noticeable, the change in landscape in each of the 3 acts actually, but particularly in Act 3 when it's snowy everywhere and you're going up these mountains and everything.
That's
So
fucking cold. Yeah.
cold, and there's
it was great they did that because I was so tired of all of the beautiful differentiating landscapes that they had made previously.
right.
And then they made one whole area kind of look the same.
Yeah.
I was a little
And
pissed off.
wintry. Yeah, and yeah, just yeah. And it reminded you of home.
So that was pretty cool. But I don't know if you get there's a lot of like kind of real world things built into this game where they kind of really did their homework. Sucker Punch is a game based out of Seattle, and a company based out of Seattle. And I remember them getting a lot of shit when they were going to take on this game of like, how is this American company going to build out this samurai game? Are they going to try to make it, And they spent a bunch of time traveling through Tsushima and getting specialists. That they got like blacksmiths, so they had them there and like, hey, that's not how you actually would build a weapon, or that's not how this battling would happen. So they really did a good job in building their homework. So a lot of the little nuances of the game are real to life. This storyline obviously isn't, but the Mongol invasion they did try to invade Tsushima Island, and what happened in the real world was a storm came along, and the storm is what wiped out the Mongols. Now, at the end of Act 3, a storm rolls in, and that's when you make your last stand here, and you go to fight the Mongols. So it kind of plays off that theory of like, hey, the storm is rolling in.
Oracle storm.
Or was the storm the story that people told because Jin actually came through and killed all these people off and everything? So I always want to give kudos to Sucker Punch for really kind of doing a lot of homework and putting a lot of truth and into their game.
No, but there was a tsunami.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so that was kind of a really cool ending. But what are your guys' thoughts on the last battle, the battle with the Khan, the confrontation with the Khan? P?
Oh, that one.
Vision.
Con. We let's see. It was good, man. Like it was a culmination of all your skills. I mean, they threw every fucking iteration of boss that was in there that needed the dodge skill. It needed the perfect parry skill. I mean, you needed to sword fight this guy. You needed to jump over this guy and get him. I mean, it was pretty cool. And then you needed. I actually beat Con Dickface by keeping on throwing bombs at him. So those black powder bombs just I unloaded on that bastard. And that's actually was my final couple strikes too. That fucker went down like a little bitch. So that was good.
A lot of bitches in this game. What's he?
A few bitches in this game.
I loved it. Initially, I thought it was backwards that you started your one-on-one fight with the Khan after you like went through and cut everybody down from his ship, and then from there it was like battling him and a bunch of his fucking minions all at the same time. I thought that was a little backwards narratively, but
that like random extra bitches came out of nowhere during the boss fight.
Right. It was.
I could see that.
It was. It definitely did make it harder. So that was cool. But the part where the ship's on fire behind you, and right after you've chopped off his fucking head, which he does in the most awesome and stylistically dramatic fashion, you're just like, fuck this fucking asshole.
The last boss battle didn't work for me.
Oh! I feel something hot. Something hot's coming in.
I did not like it. I loved the duel. I thought that was really cool. I liked fighting him on the ship. I didn't even realize I was fighting him on the ship. He had the distinct armor, but I was fighting him on the duel. Then he ran away, and then I was on the ship fighting dudes, and then like he was in there with the other dudes. But I was just going to town on fools left and right, and then I'm like, why is this fucking asshole not going down? I kept fighting him, and I didn't realize he was the boss. I thought he was just some other like random like mini boss I had to get through to get to the con. So when I killed him, like,
tell it was him the whole time. All right.
No, I couldn't. And so I was fighting him, and I didn't even realize it was him. So to me, he just kind of washed away with all the little minions that he had with him. So it didn't work for me. But it was a cool set piece. I'll say that.
I could get with you on that they didn't. I will say that getting into that battle was anticlimactic after you had wiped out the whole the ship. Like you said, you go through all the ships, you wipe everybody out, and then all of a sudden it was like boss battle. Like they didn't do. They could have done something slightly different there to announce that you were at the end. Like kind of they could have actually mirrored that beginning point there. They could have knocked you down and taken away a thing or two from you. Right, some of your inventory, some of your a skill or two or a super or whatever. They could have knocked your bitch ass back to be like, hey, this bitch is here now and it's the boss battle. So I could see where you're coming from. It did just kind of start out of nowhere where it was like, oh, the ship's on fire and it's the boss battle.
Yeah, so it didn't work for me, but it was still a cool set piece. I will say that. So, all right. So, with all that being said, we need to talk about the choice. This was this whole game long. It's its own little storytelling
without cheese
and a hand guiding you one way or the other. But essentially, Sucker Punch is telling you the story they want you to tell. You can glean from whatever you want, and you do a really good job of letting you do that. However, and they give a few points in the game where you can choose different lines of dialogue you want to do, but it all culminates with reuniting with your uncle, him bringing you on this walk along where you help people, and he's like, "Why are you getting all these people together?" And then all of a sudden, he brings you back to your home, and you have a duel with your uncle that ends with giving you the choice to either let him live or let him die.
All right, D, you go first.
No, no,
I
no.
have a thought on my because I know what you did, but you go first.
Shh. Hang on. Let's let CJ go
I have a
first because
thought.
he picked differently than the rest of us.
So I did. I did.
All right.
I chose.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, so I mean, I chose to let him live. I waffled
What?
back and forth on my answer.
You
Wait, wait, wait,
you
wait. I
said you
thought you
killed
killed
him.
him.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I killed him. I did kill him. I killed
I'm
him.
sorry, he's dead.
Um, I killed that bitch. So I waffled back and forth on my answer, and I ultimately decided to let him live because it was me killing him. It was killing off my samurai past. It was the last thing that was anchoring me to my past. This was the person that raised me. Um, Even though we've had these fights and quarrels recently and whatnot in the storyline, he's still my uncle. This is what he wants. This is, in his mind, this is being honorable. So I'm going to kill him off. I'm going to end my samurai, and this is what's going to push me into being the ghost.
That is
Um,
interesting.
So you felt like that was the conclusion of the samurai chapter of Jin's life, and then
exactly, yeah,
him
and
fully embracing the ghost.
like you guys touched on, it happened for you guys in different story points. Sound like it happened for you guys. A lot of it was kind of that act two where Taka is killed, and D
Yeah, once
sound
Taco's
like for
killed, man.
and D it sounded like for you is
So,
maybe even a little bit earlier. But for me, what it was the end of the game. And so I've heard kind of the canonical ending is the other one where you let him live because you're already the ghost and you're done being a samurai. But my decision was to kill him, kill off the samurai in me, and be done.
so I think the most interesting part of your answer for me was, well, actually, the both of you, how you responded is you thought for the reason for doing what you did is you thought at that point he was fully completing his transformation to the ghost. I actually disagree. I don't think he ever saw himself as anything but a samurai who just did what he had to do. He understood the code of conduct he was violating, but he felt it was his duty as a samurai above and all else to protect his people and his land. That was a higher calling as a samurai to him than the
And the
rules of
written, yeah.
But that isn't that what being the ghost is, right?
that
Like
is what
the
being a
ghost
ghost
is
is.
the
Well,
evolution
But it's
of the
but
samurai, right?
that's what it became,
yeah.
but to
I'm saying
Jin, it didn't have to be. He could
he is
still be a samurai and still do things the way he was doing them.
he is Bruce Wayne, and the ghost is Batman.
I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if I think that the ghost to
So
me
and the other
represents. Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
And the other thing for me about why I chose to let him live was it was my point to him the whole time that like I the reason I'm doing this is because I love you. The reason I'm doing this is because I love you. I love our people. I love our island. I don't want us to fucking die. And I need you to see and finally understand for once in your fucking life that this this the things that you live by need to they are ideals, but they need to be pliable. And you have to get that. Otherwise we're gonna die.
See,
And
I
and he never fucking he never fucking got it. And I couldn't kill him because I had to say once and for all, no. No. This is not the honor that you need. You are going to live. I did this so that you could live.
For me,
He
that was
sacrificed his own honor for his uncle.
for me that if the uncle didn't see that after defeating the Khan, he's he's not going to see it. Um,
But
and
does that what Jin's and that's why I didn't kill him too, because it didn't matter. I was never gonna. I as much as I grew to dislike him and grow apart from him, I still loved him.
and
Like,
because I loved him, that's exactly why I killed him
right,
because to
and I get
him
it, and I
that's
get
what
it,
he
and this is
wanted.
again
That was the
Um,
choice.
is the choice that you're making in these situations is the combined decisions of all the narratives you have written for yourself as the player, because
right,
Jin's
exactly,
narrative was, it had big stopping point, big stopping point, big stopping point. But other than that, you were kind of making it up in your head.
exactly. And just because they're telling the story of the invasion of Tsushima Island, um, there's a lot of interactions with the characters which really build out this game and make it something special. So, D, you obviously let him live.
I did. So,
Which I gotta say, given how much of a bitch he apparently is, I'm quite shocked by it.
I was surprised by that also, to be honest with you.
guys, this was the decision I
I thought you
struggled
would have
with
just
the
gone into a
most.
cabin and been like, "Fuck you, little bitch."
Oh my god, dude!
But
Hey! To these guys' credit, who was the developer?
Punch.
Sorry, thank you, Sucker Punch. To their undying credit, man. Usually, actually, 99.9% of the time, you guys would be 100% correct. That bitch ass bitch, I would have sliced that fucker's head off without even thinking about it. And I've been like, this bitch needs to die. But given everything like you guys were talking about, the whole narrative throughout the game, and like, what it means to be, honorable, all that other shit was running through here. Like, I actually stopped when the choice thing was up.
You did it out of spite because he's a bitch ass bitch.
Hey, that was part of it. It also had to do with what you guys were talking about, man. Like it's you had this whole samurai code, but like that bitch needs to be updated because our people were gonna fucking die. Like that's some bullshit. Like, and then there's the whole point of so it was multifaceted,
You were
right?
wrong then, and you were wrong now.
Correct. So it was proving to him that he was wrong, number one, and
Yep.
then it was proving that he was choosing in every single instance what was and was not honorable given the situation per his samurai code.
Yep.
Killing your own fucking family is not honorable. So I wanted to prove that to him. Like, and then there was the third point that I wrote on our script. That his bitch ass was going to have to think about being a bitch the whole rest of his life. And then how much of a bitch he was the entire time.
Right.
Because now I let him live, so now he's going to have to go back to the Shogun and say, hey man, it turns out I'm a bitch. And so I'm just going to have to sit here in my bitch castle and think about my bitch decisions the whole rest of my bitch life.
Eating my bitch burgers. And
Yeah. Eating my bitch rice and my bitch fish.
Drinking my bitch ass sake.
So that was all. It was all the things you guys said too, man. It's I wanted him to think about that shit, and that's honestly why I did it, because it's like killing you is not fucking honorable. If I kill you, I'm proving to you that you were right, and that I'm an asshole, and that I'm betraying my samurai code, and that's some bullshit. I'm a better samurai than you, and your bitch ass can sit there and think about that for another 30 years.
But
retire as champion, fucker.
That's
and one of us killed the Khan, and one of us was sitting in the fucking castle. Sit your bitch ass down.
That's what makes this game so special. So let's get into some of these NPCs now. I touched on it earlier, but there's kind of these four main mythic quests in the game. They trail throughout the whole game. You pick up some earlier and longer, and then you kind of fall off from people. But there's certain quest lines in the game that are distinguished of NPCs. They're kind of like your main NPCs in the game, and each one I think has a very special depth to the character that is often not built out in games, and it's really told through the various quests you go on with them. So let's start off with where do you guys want to start off? Norio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Norio, he was the warrior monk in the game. And you remember? Do you remember, or do you remember exactly when you first meet up with Norio?
Yeah. Norio,
It's all one, right?
Norio was my favorite side character of the game.
Yeah. Agreed.
By far and away. So you first meet him. So in the very first mission, after the conclusion of Act 1, you and your uncle ride north to go to some fort that was just on the other side of the next landmass, and so you go in there and you free the fort, and Norio was a prisoner of the Mongols there, and he's a warrior monk. And then you go off to go secure his village, which is one of the main hubs of that part of that island in Act 2. And then from there, you help him seek out basically people who are hurting the various shrines that are important to Buddhism around the island, and then learn later on that your brother, who you thought was already killed by Mongols,
Norio's brother. Yeah.
Norio's brother, isn't quite dead, and you discover him, which is the most emotional mission in the game
By far.
The Mongols had cut off all 4 of his limbs and were keeping him alive.
For intel.
Yeah, for intel. And seeing that, and then him telling Norio that the only thing that kept him living was wanting to basically say goodbye to Norio. And now that he was able to say goodbye, he asked Norio to kill him. So Norio had to kill his own fucking brother, who he had already thought was dead, then later found out was alive, and then discovered he had all 4 of his limbs cut off, and then had to kill his own fucking brother as a mercy kill. Fuck, that is some heavy shit.
Yeah, that was some heavy shit.
Some heavy shit.
By far the heaviest, outside of the Yuna's brother, also heavy, but this one was pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also sidebar.
We're like a minute.
So Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, sorry. So some of those other ones, Witcher, all these ones,
right.
Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Skyrim.
Yeah.
You have all these fucking side quests. Not incredibly engaging 95% of the time.
Right.
Hats off to these guys. Guys, if you're out there, ghosts, don't skip the fucking side quests. They are rewarding as fuck. Obviously, we're talking about them. But, go do the side quests. You don't necessarily need to go all do the fucking, hey, I'm going to go find all the fox shrines and all this other bullshit. But these NPCs, go do the 8 or 9 side quests, man. It's by far the best storylines of any side quest. Even Fallout.
And they all add. I think a lot of them tell little stories, right? There's
correct.
Little stories, and they each open a window into the people's view of what's going on, how people are surviving, and just building on your needs and justifications for doing what you're doing.
Yep, and Fallout is probably the closest facsimile to this. But having really crush the Fallout games, it's not close. Like these guys did such a much better job on the storylines of the NPCs that it's not even funny.
Right.
Well worth your time.
I think The Witcher 3 comes actually a little bit closer than you think, D. So there is a lot of bloat in The Witcher 3, and that's where it differentiates a little bit here because to Woods' point of all of the side quests, not just the mythic ones in particular, that's why they call them out, but all the side quests do a lot of building in the story. But in The Witcher, there's also, side quests you go on that really kind of build to that. But you're spot on, D. Do not skip the side quests. Play them through.
Yeah, not your NPC quests anyway.
Exactly. And on top of all that, finding your brother, Norio's brother, is not the end of that quest line, right?
No.
So it's the second to last.
Yeah, that was the penultimate. Yeah,
penultimate. The ultimate one was basically Norio, this monk, for all intents and purposes, loses his faith and just it's like.
Yeah, he goes and crushes a fucking yeah.
Why I've been faithful, I've been good my entire life, and this happened to my brother, and I had to kill my brother. Why? What faith is there for me to have right now? So, and he goes off on his own way at the end, and
right.
It's like holy shit. It's a monk. It's.
I thought, but his end. I thought he was like, I'm going to be a monk or whatever, but I'm still going to do my own thing now.
Jin convinced him to go back to the temple.
Yeah,
but it was so you guys are both right. So as part of the mission, Norio does lose his shit, and there's a Mongol inhabited camp that Norio goes to and fucking sets it ablaze, and that dude kills fucking everybody. You show up and you're like, man, I'm ready to fight. My dick's hard. All this stuff, and then. Fucking people are wandering around on fire like this is goddamn Anchorman. There's just guys wandering around, and it turns out Norio's just fucking burning the thing down.
It's fucking brutal.
Yeah.
But then Jin, at the end of that, Norio was like, "Hey, I want to go set people on fire professionally," and Jin was like, "Hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe you should go back to the temple." Where you've spent a lot of time and it's probably best for you and you could help a lot of people. And then Norio went, hey man, you're right. I'm going to go do that.
Okay.
And I actually thought going into that last mission that it was like going to lead to some fucking final fight between me and Norio.
Which that's a good point.
I'm glad they didn't do, but
that would have been bad.
Upon gut reaction, I'm glad they didn't do, but he didn't deserve to die. But could you imagine the storyline, if it would have gone one level deeper and been
he flipped, yeah.
He totally went to the dark side and was like, Jin, I'm gonna poison all of them, blah 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 blah, and then Jin being like, no dog, I did that for the one thing, but we're not doing that there for all of them. And then he'd be like, no, motherfucker, we is.
Yeah, we're killing everybody.
No, we is, motherfucker. And then...
You gotta fight him, yeah.
I kept waiting for a lot of betrayals to happen and fighting some of these NPCs, which for the most part didn't happen. So I can see where you thought that.
Right. And before we move on to Misako, one thing I do want to touch on that isn't here. I actually thought another one of the most impactful storylines, if you do all the stuff, if you do all the climbing things and the foxes and was the one mission in Act 2 for the foxes, where you find a group of the Mongols literally skinning and hunting all the foxes, and you have to take out that group of Mongols. That I was super ready to do for the animals. I was all PETA on that shit.
Well, because the foxes are the one thing you can interact with and you can pet them, which is, you follow these foxes and they're like, hey, come follow me. And you run with them and they show you this little thing and it levels, I don't remember your resolve or whatever the hell it levels up. And
it unlocks the charm slots.
Oh, the charm slot, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep, that's what it was. Yep. So yeah, I spot on, Woodsy. Masako. So Masako For those of you who don't remember, she was the vengeful warrior, murder grandma, as they dubbed her at Sucker Punch. Um, her family was killed off, and she's just angry all the time. And you go through the game, her quest line, and you're trying to figure out who essentially killed off her family, which
Because
kind of
originally she thinks it's the Mongols, of course,
yeah,
the invasion.
and
Then
it
she
kind
realizes it was somebody from her own tribe, and then she realizes very later on,
Yeah, the last few missions. Yep.
that it was her younger sister who betrayed her and hired all these basically assassins to kill her whole family.
Because she was pissed off that Masako gave her away via the arranged marriage deal to a drunken, abusive person,
Right.
and she was supposed to, and like to your guys' point with the moral gray area shit, like uh, like the sister, the Masako was supposed to be the trusted older sister, and that the younger sister did trust for a while. And then your older sister gives you away to this person that beats the living shit out of you. Like how pissed off would that make you?
well, and to Mazuko's and Mazuko's view was, I think, didn't she like that guy at that point, and he wanted to be with her, but she thought her sister liked her more, so she kind of stepped back and but there was just this whole
I think it was
rumblings
a
of miscommunication.
stereotypical alcoholic thing where the dude was not that way in public and gave off the vibe that he was an upstanding dude and was nice to everyone in public, and then he would
Right.
drink behind the scenes and then start beating the shit out of people.
I think there was some weird love triangle thing though too. I forget exactly what it was, but
Because
yeah,
Mazuko,
you're also right though, D. There was something like that too.
I think he
Um,
became this like drunken alcoholic later, but I think that Mazuko, in Mazuko's mind, she wanted to be with this guy, and then she kind of stepped back for her sister, and her sister never wanted to be with this guy, and she feels like Mazuko forced him on
because
her,
Bosco wanted to be more of a warrior.
and
Mm.
then exactly, and then he became or was this raging alcoholic and ruined her whole life.
Right.
Um, so it's this whole weird circle, but where it gets this character building, it doesn't beat you over the head, but there's this mission you go on with Masako where you find out she's bisexual, and it's not a big thing in the game. It's just like, yeah, did you hear our conversation? And he's like, yeah, because you saved this woman who was her former lover or something, and it
Who
just
she thought had betrayed her,
who she
and
thought
it
had
was
betrayed
her. It
her.
was her like handmaiden or what have you, right?
Exactly right. So it's where it's just like, these little interactions you have where it's just, not a big thing, but it adds depth to the characters that you don't get elsewhere.
Yeah,
Right.
big time.
Yep. Um, yeah. Do we cover the? Yeah, I suppose you probably do. I forget the name of. Yep. Yuriko. That's right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, Yuriko, yeah, we'll get to her kind of here toward. So Ishikawa, the next one I want to talk to, he is the archer. He's the old crazy grandpa archer that you meet.
I love
Not quite
this
as charismatic.
guy.
That's interesting. I actually he is my least favorite of all of them.
Well,
So
yeah, but I
so
still liked him.
Well, you're right, but I thought you like. I mean, there's
Not
other.
the
He's
not
great,
the best.
but
No, I like Norio the best.
Um,
He was my dude.
so his whole storyline was he was this archer who had this star pupil. Her name was Tomoe, and turns out she had kind of turned her back on him and sided with the Mongols, and then was now throughout the game taking down these people. And then you find these people like, well, this is Tomoe because this is how she would betray someone. I taught her how to do this, and she's used this and evolved it to this point. So his whole storyline is trying to go through and try to capture Tomoe. Um, and then with him, you go through these various missions and quests and everything, and then all of a sudden, I don't remember where you go. You're going somewhere, but you get lost or something, and then you meet up with this random woman, and you're with her for an abnormal amount of time. And I'm like, and I don't know how quickly you guys picked up on it, but for me, it was like
I started to assume about midway through.
it was like the first quarter because I'm like, there's no way I'm spending more time with this person, and this
Right.
person isn't Tomoe because it was like it was
Yeah.
noticeable. Like, hey, let's go look for these rabbits I captured, or hey, I'm not a very good archer, and I'm just like, no, no bitch, you're Tomoe. So you go back in and you're having dinner with her, and he's like, so how long, whatever, Tomoe. And I'm like, yep.
Yeah. Yeah. He calls her out.
But then it kind of circles around where she got kind of screwed over by the Mongols also, and now she's kind of caught in
She's trying to make her
between.
way to the mainland
Yeah.
to be with her
And
sister.
she had her own reasons for doing what she did, eh,
Mhm.
just like everyone else in this game. And then you
Yep.
actually need to rely on Tomoe at the end of the quest to
Help.
help.
And there are some interesting plot developments with actually Ishikawa too. But that was the thing is like I almost, and this is why I think I liked him the least, is because I actually like Tomoe more than him. you know. Plus, there was like the implied romantic relationship between them, and
Yeah.
um, there are some interesting things. But yeah,
Yeah, so that was another one of the main mythic quest lines, and then the kind of the final mythic one was Yuna. Now we touched on her a little bit, but she was the person that pulled you out of the rubble essentially in the start of the game, dusted you off, gotten you back to health, and then you come to find out that she is looking for her brother, and we touch on the her brother's murder, and she shows up right after he was murdered, and she kind of loses her shit for a bit for a while, obviously after seeing her brother beheaded. Um,
but he was originally captured during the initial phase of the Mongolian invasion
yeah, yep. So then you kind of
because he was a
use each other
blacksmith of a certain skill. That,
like a very well, one of the most renowned blacksmiths. Like he starts blacksmithing for the Mongols, and then he comes into and we already kind of covered his quest line a bit, but she's kind of like your main NPC, your main person you go
I'd
around
agree with
with.
that. Yeah.
yeah,
And I read some fan theories where they thought that once Jin was captured at the end of Act Two, if he was gonna get kind of killed off, if you take over as Yuna and finish up the game as Yuna. I'm kind of glad
oh
they
shit,
didn't go
yeah,
through that way, but that's what a lot of people, or some people at least, thought the story was leading. So she is kind of one of the main characters in the game. They have this kind of
well,
interesting
and it's
relation.
interesting too because she's kind of the genesis of your transformation in a certain sense as well.
She is, yeah.
Yeah. The end point. Yep.
Well,
Although
so
she's way too far. Yeah.
the very first mission you go on with her was because she thought her brother was being encamped at that one little camp up the hill, and you go up there, and that's where you have that initial flashback of a mini mission when you're a kid, and you're going out and you was it encounter the bear, and then the assassin with your uncle, and he teach you the samurai code and yada yada yada, and then
Yep.
you have to assassinate this motherfucker because your brother might be there, and if you cause some rambunctious shit, they might assassinate him immediately. So you have to start doing some stealthy shit. Stab,
Yep.
stab, stab.
Yeah, and
So
there's also kind of this like, it's never really, but it's kind of like this implied like they love each other, but there's never, but it's
in the
not
end, yeah, I would say, yeah.
really,
Yeah. There was
but
that one mission towards the end, like the final one, where they were
but it
flirting
wasn't
a
like a
little bit,
typical
and it was
like
odd.
it was, but it also wasn't like hitting you over the head of like I need to shoehorn in the girlfriend or the
Right. I'm
Yes,
boyfriend.
they
glad.
didn't make
I'm
it
glad they
official,
didn't
which
do
was
that.
nice. They just left it at flirting, which was fine.
But she wanted to escape to the mainland with her brother as well.
Yes.
Right, and then she go,
Um,
why don't we go there together? So,
right.
but she was definitely like the kind of the main NPC, and she had pretty strong quest lines. So,
Yeah.
so now let's cover a couple more of these NPCs since we're running a little long here. But Kenji, this guy
My
was
man. My
the
man.
sake brewer. I like
Fucking
this
love
guy
this guy,
also.
too.
He
Goddamn
kept
drunk bastard.
he
Loved him.
was, and he kept like stepping on the rake, and he was like,
He
oh,
was the comedic relief for sure.
he
I
was,
didn't
and
I didn't know that the Mongols were gonna come here. I was
I
just
sold
giving
him
him
this
some sake.
and this pile of shit. I sold him this like fake pile of whatever the hell he was selling, and then he kept getting into trouble, and it kept happening. And then Jin's like, "All right,
He's
are
a
you gonna be?"
hustler. He was a hustler.
And then
He was
Jin
a
kept
big
being
time
like, "Hey,
hustler.
are you gonna be on the straight and narrow?" And he'd be like, "Yeah." And then like
Oh yeah,
two
man, no
missions
more
later, all of a
trouble.
sudden he's like stepping on the rake again.
You
But
did it again, Genji.
yeah, but what he did, there was definitely some fun
Dexter.
quests with him. Yeah, sorry, Dex. Where like you were hiding in the liquor barrel, and you're like, it
Oh, I
stinks
love
in
that.
here, and he's like, it's fucking liquor. What do you expect? So Kenji was kind of a fun NPC, and
Yeah, but
then
then he actually, makes a noble turn himself at the end, right?
he does, yeah,
He decides that, he sees the value of the things he can do in selfish ways, but he sees how we can employ those same skills in noble ways. And he grows throughout his story to learn that the people matter to him now, and he doesn't want to just be this hustler. He wants to use his skills of persuasion and charisma and thievery or whatever else to be a bit of a Robin Hood to the people. And
I loved it.
I didn't think his storyline was going to have a lot of depth because he was the comedic relief, but it ended up having quite a lot, and it was good. He was a great character.
Loved him. Yep. Agree.
and the last person I want to touch on is Yuriko. Now, at one point in the game, you kind of go back to your childhood home, and you go back there to get your father's armor, and you come across this person. You're not quite sure initially who she is, but she essentially was the person who was the maid of the house and who helped raise you, and she is quite elderly and a little has a little dementia going on where she kind of comes in like, hey, she recognizes you initially, and then she kind of like keeps thinking you're the dad. And through the various quest lines, her character is built out where it's like,
Wow, wow, wow.
she's talking to you as if you were the dad. She's like, some of the best days of my life was when I was taking care of Jin when he was sick, and this and the other. And it kind and it does come out that she was the dad's mistress or whatever, and
Gotta have
which
that
kind of
side
feels,
pussy, guys. I don't know.
with which kind of builds some complexity. But you go on these missions with her, and like, and it doesn't like explicitly say it, but you definitely figure it out. You're like over time, you're like, what, and then you're like, oh shit, I see what's going on here.
I actually thought they were going to make a turn for her being his real mother.
I thought
That's where I thought it was
she
going.
was. But she's also the one that teaches you poison, and then
Yep.
at the end of her quest, she ends up passing away.
Yeah. I
So
thought her missions were the lamest of all of them, but I liked her as a character.
I thought the missions, I didn't like the missions that much either, but her as a
Yes.
character and
Agreed.
the story she told was awesome, as with everyone. So, all right, so that kind of covers all the NPCs I wanted to touch on. Let's cover a couple of the mechanics you guys like that we haven't touched on. Um, D, is there anything in particular you want to call out?
Let's see. I'm gonna go with. You've got it on here. The fast travel. One of the best implementations of fast travel that I've seen. They made fast travel points all over the goddamn map. As long as you had seen it, you didn't actually have to complete anything there most of the time. But as long as you had seen a place most of the time, you could fast travel to it. It made it super easy when they had certain missions, and I think we covered it on a different show, but that there was some of the Act 2 and 3 shit where you had to go all over the goddamn map for some of the mythic quests. And being able to just click on something that was close and do like basically be within 1,000 kilometers or meters or however the fuck they did it, but it was the unit that they used. I can't remember. Was it meters? I think it was meters. So yeah, whatever. You'd be within 1,000 whatevers to your objective, and I thought that was badass.
Love the fast travel. I've done it many times, but it helps the completionist in me.
Oh yeah, and you had it on here too, the wind, the guiding wind. I thought that was a super sweet mechanic. I can't say enough about that. A lot of times, we were even in Call of Duty with the zombies, like the HUD with the color dots, super confusing. Half the time, I was trying to pinpoint why I was angry at it the other day, yesterday. I was trying to find you, Woodsy, and like the dot was on the corner or on the right side of my screen indicating I needed to scroll right, and when I did that, it disappeared. Like when I got to it,
You're
and it
getting
didn't
like
show you.
with that one, right?
And I was like, what the fuck? So having the wind just be able to flick up on the thing and then have it kind of guide you to where you need to go, I thought that was awesome.
Totally agree. I know it was a kind of not controversy is the right term, but a talking point at least when the game was coming out there wasn't going to be a HUD. And what the
Love it.
developer has since come out and said was, a lot of times when you have a HUD and you see where you need to go, you're not paying attention to your surroundings, right? You say, I need to go to this little dot here. I see the path there. Let me follow it. I'm gonna walk this tiny little map, and I have this giant screen in front of me. Um, but you have the wind guiding you, and one of the points I liked was the little touches. So you're getting guided by the wind, and you're going, hey, I'm gonna go to this question mark, and all of a sudden the bird comes swooping in, right? And you're like, well, what the hell is this bird? So then you follow the bird, and all of a sudden you're at a fox den, or you're at a hot spring, or you're at whatever.
They made it very
Um,
natural to find those
Organically
things.
remove the
Yeah,
shroud of the map.
or
yep,
organic. Yep, yep.
it was. So I truly enjoyed the lack of a HUD and the guiding wind also.
Me too. It helped.
Woodsy,
I mean, the game was fucking gorgeous, right? So the
right?
lack of a HUD was so great because it immersed you in just the pure beauty of that fucking game.
Agreed.
Um, so and that for me brings one of my favorite mechanics actually. So I'm not a photo mode guy. I've used photo mode in 3 games ever: Pokemon Snap, uh,
What?
No Man's Sky, and not very much, and Ghost of Tsushima, like a pretty fair amount. Like I took a lot of snaps in that game, and I did a Twitter reel of some of them. Which for those of you who saw those, it was that moment where you click your sword out from its sheath in a duel. And I snap. I just happened to snap that moment like for every single duel in that game, and I made a collage. Um, I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was super amazing photo mode. Um,
Very in depth also.
yeah,
You can really get down in the weeds with
yeah.
that photo where you
Like
can
the
change the
actual,
weather and you
there's
can
a lot of
Yeah,
change.
people who
time of
don't know
day.
photography, and that's got it all. So um, it's pretty cool, and I love the fact also too as you unlock um, new songs you can play with your flute that you could actually change the weather. That was pretty cool, just because then you could make whatever scene you want, or to ride around and experience the beauty of X, which is why I thought that was really cool. And then the third thing I really liked um, was the fact that the charms, which is why I actually really love doing the foxes, the charms really enabled you to kind of class yourself out to be the warrior that you wanted to be in that game. Um, so you're just it enabled you to do a lot of variety of build types. So to play to the game style you like. So I like that.
Yeah, you guys touch on it. I mean, the fast travel is a big one. I've talked about that many times. The weather mechanics are cool. When you started being more quote dishonorable and stealth killing people, all of a sudden storms started rolling in.
Right.
Another nice
Pretty
cool
cool, right?
touch.
Yep.
There were little things like depending on how many arrows you had, it was actually the correct number of arrows in your quiver or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
A lot of beautiful little touches. I mean, and
yeah,
everything in that game was just so fucking pretty. Again, just
the little actions you did when you sheathed your sword, if it was bloody, you'd wipe it off and put it
Yeah,
in.
that was cool.
yeah.
Or
There's a technique too, and what he does it, and it's called something I forget, but
yeah,
you flick it at the ground to get all the blood off. That's just
yeah. And then also little things like depending on how like the blood spatter that they spent a bunch of time working on is like
yeah.
depending on
I
how
heard
you cut them, blood would spatter differently. So there was an animation for each type of sword action you would do.
Right.
Um,
So much
so
attention to detail.
a lot of things. Okay,
Oh,
so
also the poetry. I love that the game forces you to make your own shit up, like narratively, and interpret a word and do a
oh man,
haiku.
that didn't work. After a while, I got fed up with that, and I click, and then proceeded on.
Yeah, the first one or two I did, and then
I
I
really
did
give a
too.
thoughtful importance to all
I
of those.
didn't. The first couple I did too, and I tried. I looked at each one. I thought about it. After a while, I was just like, fuck it, I don't care. Okay, so that kind of gets into what I want to talk about now is some issues you guys had with the game. So, D, what were some issues you had
oh
with the
me,
game?
oh
Yeah, or I guess Woodsy.
no, it's okay.
The
You
best
Go
game
ahead.
ever. Just kidding.
you what?
um, I think it was slightly bloaty in certain regards, but I never really minded it because the game was so fucking pretty, and I kind of always also wanted to see what was next. Could they have had fewer fox dens and fewer shrines and this that? Yes, for sure. But other than that, I didn't mind riding around. Um, some of the stealth also I felt was just too easy, like in Assassin's Creed way.
Yeah, as long as you were crouched, it was okay.
Well, it was literally like you auto jump down at a specific dude with a square button is hovering over and it says assassin, and it's like, where have I seen this before? So, um, and some of those other mechanics are very much Assassin's Creed, um, within the ninjutsu style combat. And others aren't. It is and it isn't, but there's a lot of yeah.
I'm with you because, with the parries and some of the other things they introduced here, that's very different. Because, again, with perfect parries, they're not fucking around. They made that button like, and per enemy, it's different on your timing. Like,
Right.
I find, I'm actually going to agree with you here. I didn't think about it till just now. But the assassinate and the critical strike thing to be way too easy with just the mashing of the button. Why isn't it a jump off the thing that you're on top of and then another timing mechanic that
Well,
if you fuck it up?
the ninja game was different from the samurai game, and that was the point.
That's true.
Well,
One was easier.
Oh,
And
one's easy. Yeah, well, I guess from that point of view, yeah.
one of the things I didn't touch on for favorite parts of the game that I totally forgot about was the different stances and how they
Oh yeah.
correlated to
Oh,
different guys. That was really cool. That made your life. You could kill each guy however you wanted, but if you wanted to make your life easier, you learned about how to kill each type
Just
of
like
character.
and that took me until about Act 3 to start remembering
Really
which
beat
one
that.
was fucking which.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's
So that
true. It's super true. Like the one you can't like the worst guys to face in that game, if you weren't using the right stands, were the stance was the dudes with the shields.
right.
You had
So I always took them out with the ghost stance right away if I could because I was tired of fighting those
yeah.
fucks. It's interesting you guys both touched on the ease of the stealth thing because that was one of the gripes I had actually was I struggled with the stealth action things
Oh,
like the problem that I ran into a lot was I would be on top of a tree or a building or something and I'd be ready to do my stealth attack or chain stealth attack and I'd click the button and the character would just like take a step away and all of a sudden the stealth button would disappear for me and I would jump down and I like swipe at the dude and I'm like, oh fuck, I don't want to do this now all of a sudden all the alarm bells are going and everything and I'm sitting there in a full-on fucking battle so I struggled using the fucking stealth attack.
Did you jump first and then try to assassinate?
No, I would just sit there and I'd see the stealth attack, so I'd click it, and it was either too late or too early or something, whatever the case was, or I assumed it was going to pop up. And a lot of times it was a little late or something, and I would jump down and I would do it, and it really compounded itself when it came to the chain one, because I'm like, I want to chain a bunch of these motherfuckers
right.
because I see three of them in the screen. I
Yeah.
jump down, and all of a sudden I'm heavy attacking, and I'm like, fuck me. So now I had to go through and do it. So I struggle with that. Um, some other gripes.
Were you trying to do the crit hit on one guy before you did the assassination on the other for the double? Because
It
that
was
don't work
whatever
out
the,
well.
the triangle and then the whatever. No, it wasn't the critical. I never really did the crit. But some other problems I had with the game too was the bloat. I thought there was way
I'm
too many
going with
camps.
operator error on this previous one, by the way.
I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was, but I did not like that. So I'm sure it was
That's
me.
okay.
Um, but I thought the game suffered with bloat. I thought there was way and part of it's probably me trying to go through to do the completionist of doing everything.
Right.
But there was so many fox dens and the haikus. I'm just like, oh my god, another haiku, or another mountain to climb, or another Mongol camp to get through, and it's just like, oh my goodness,
And I enjoyed them. I'm not gonna. Then, like I said, I agree with you. I, I enjoyed them all as a concept. I wish there were just a few fewer of them.
So
Um,
the asterisk I put on that is again they, and I think some of these just come from how much attention to detail was on other things. So if I feel like we wouldn't have these complaints if they would have tapered the bastards. So by the time you get to Act 3, there's like, in that little map that's up top in the winter, if there were like 2 fox dens and like 1 camp and like 1 thing to do up there, we would all be fine. But they put like just as many in all of the areas
Right.
to
Yeah.
just go fucking do randomly.
I sort of agree with you,
Yeah,
especially since I felt that like the 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 winter area, Act 3, was very samey in its
yes.
environment.
Yes, so I feel like if there would have been less to do with the
Right.
grinding, that the complaints would all go away. Because by the time you did the 6 or 8 fox dens or whatever, it was in Act 1, you're like, well, alright, I fucking went and did that. And then it wouldn't have felt like such a big thing to go do. And so I just think that could have been a little better.
Most of them, though, was they each showcased a beautiful vista in that game.
Absolutely.
yeah, but like after you gotten all the fox dens and you've completely maxed out your charm thing, and you're just doing the fox dens just for a vista, it's like, oh god. Um,
I
another
know.
problem.
I hear you.
Yeah, I can see
I
where
don't.
that comes from.
Another problem I had was the lack of a lock-on mechanic. Um, I get why they didn't have it. You're a samurai, you're in the circle of a million guys, and you're fighting this guy, then you're fighting that guy, and you're fighting this guy, and it's just a lot going on. Um, it still, to me, doesn't justify not having it as an option if you want to. Um, I think that might have eased my issue sometimes with maybe some of the stealth things, and I still think it should have been an option for you if you wanted it. So I was definitely missing the lack of a lock-on mechanic.
I
Uh,
think that they could have worked that in again subtly, like so again like you said, if you're in a thing of a million guys, it doesn't need like a big circle that starts as your whole screen and zooms in on the one guy. It could have just been as simple as like a little dot, like now I'm on this guy, so that you know that your camera's in the right spot before you start fucking comboing on your on your
right.
pad, right?
So yeah,
I initially I disagreed with that mentality, but I thought it through and I kind of because I don't think R3 was utilized in any fashion in that game.
Yeah,
and and
was
and
it a crouch?
I
and
don't
and
I don't remember.
our
You might
and
be right.
that's
It might have been Crouch, but
But still.
well, they could have remapped some stuff. But regardless, like it would have been, and I get it was also kind of a stylistic choice for
it
them.
was.
It's part of the HUD thing, I'm assuming.
But it would have been cool if like you could do a snap mechanic, just average snap mechanic, but then you could just tap the right trigger to the right or left to snap to the guy to the right or left.
Yes.
And
Like
that's exactly the way that From incorporates, is that's where I'm
right,
coming from. And so, and if you're in the middle of a whole shitload of guys, you don't need
right,
it. But when it's like 3 or 4 guys that you're fighting a lot of the times, if
right.
you can lock on one and you do your stance and you know what you're
And I
doing,
think it
then
would have added a lot of like actual depth to the game, right? Because then you could go through the game without using that type at all, and then go through it with using the other type only. Like it would have been two different.
yeah, an optional mechanic, right? So
Right.
it was something it was very noticeable for me jumping into it. It waned on me as I played through the game, but at the end I'm like, it's an optional fucking mechanic. Why not have it? Then the last piece I had was that I struggled with is one of your favorite things was one of my least favorite things was the charm in the gear. I equipped my charms in my gear that I wanted, and I rode through it the whole game. And that's is kind of the way I play games. So it's a lot of it's on me. but I had my charms and my shit, and I never saw a reason after reading through what the other ones offered as to why to switch out. So, um, I didn't like the way the charms and the gear. I didn't feel incentivized enough to change my charms or my gear. The gear a little bit.
It took me a while to figure it out myself. To be fair, um, but they should have. I don't disagree. They should have had like that just weird, almost fourth wall breaking exposition by an NPC about, hey, if you have this armor and you combine it with X thing from
Charms,
this
yeah,
charm
it
that you
stacks.
got like on your first mission, then this might be able to be beneficial for X, right? Like something like
to
that.
CJ's
And then
point,
you would have paid attention to it earlier and way more.
and well, they didn't make it matter enough. Like they didn't make it
I
so
think
that
they did if you use it correctly.
I don't know. I don't know,
why
but I
I
don't know
still
about
went
that.
through and beat the game and did all the things.
Yeah, I
Like
did
I'm with
too, and
CJ. I checked it like after I did a bunch of side shit and I uncovered a bunch of shit and I was like, oh yeah, it's been like 10 hours since I've checked it. I should probably see if there's an upgrade. Like
the gear was the one that I did switch around once in a while because and the big thing I switched around with the gear was the one that uncovered more of the map just because I wanted to find more
oh
things to
yeah,
do,
Oh,
do
I
and get
always
to.
had the double resource thing employed.
Oh, and I did
That
too.
was
I had that. That was a
wow.
charm, wasn't it?
Which
So that
one?
was the double your resources. That was one of the charms you could equip, and I had that one locked in. So that was one of my spots now. So one of my spots is now eaten up by this double charm thing. So
right.
I don't remember that
you
one.
know, it was one of the charms you could get where you could double your resources. So every time you picked up the wood or the whatever the hell, you had a high probability of collecting more. So you'd go through and you'd collect something and it'd say +5, and all of a sudden, like 2 seconds later, it'd say +3 or something. So like you would compound your equipment, stuff you could
Oh,
use
okay.
to upgrade other things later. So
I
that
don't
was
know
one of
that
the
I
things
had
that
that one.
I always had that equipped. So that was one of my spots I never could take off. So the charms and the gear, I never the gear less so than the charms, but I would never felt incentivized to
It I feel like they could have benefited almost from a Call of Duty style thing where you could have had a few loadouts so that
yeah.
you could play around with. Okay,
Yeah, loadouts would have been a sweet thing.
when I
I
equip
think
my
that would have
Ronin armor, I want these. Like I would have played with it a lot more if I could add a loadout
yep.
because I certainly was not going to switch between Traveler and Ronin and Archer and then also go through and redo all my fucking charms. It just
Right.
was not gonna fucking happen.
Totally agree.
That would have been cool too. But I wonder if they discussed that internally and said no because it would hinder in a certain like to just arbitrarily change mid battle right into like a different loadout, which would probably mean a different armor setup. Like it
But
would be like from a visual perspective, it'd be
you could though.
less, less beautiful, more jarring.
You could though from the if you just did it all in the start menu manually.
Yes, that's true. Yeah,
Yep.
you're right. I don't know,
And
weird.
that was one of the things that I actually liked though was that it gave you the ability to swap things out whenever you wanted. So if you're in the
That was
mission
nice.
and you're kind of hitting your head in the wall, you're like, well, I probably should go through and change this. Okay, I'll do it. And I'll just change it back because it's what my default thing is. But you didn't have to go somewhere. You didn't have to go back to some camp to change. You could just change
Right.
whatever the hell you
That
wanted to.
was super great. But I think they could have just you could have just done those menus just slightly differently in that pause menu and just been like, okay, when I equip Archer armor, I have these charms attached. When I equip Ronin armor, I have
Yeah.
these charms attached, and that's all you would have had to do. It could have been
It'd be nice
very
if they
minimal
did
change from where
multiplayer,
it
too.
is.
If I could have more than one class for my Ronin and more than
Yeah.
one class for Samurai. Yeah, you're not wrong.
Okay, so that kind of is all my gripes. So let's go over high level thoughts. That now your thoughts on the game as a whole. We'll get into trophy time and wrap this old beefy episode up. So, D, go when I say Ghost of Tsushima, what are your thoughts?
Oh man, epic game, beautiful game. Lots of, and as we all talked about here, moral gray areas. You reflect on yourself. You reflect on and journeys you've taken and people you've interacted with and what honor means to yourself and like I said with Jin, with the samurai code and everything, you kind of I drew a lot of parallels with myself to religion and all that other good kind of stuff with your family and how you differ from them. Um, Super worth your time. Like just go pick it up. It's a fucking great game.
I
Just go
love
play
that
it.
beat. That's beautiful. Like seriously, like that you had that introspective experience about how that game itself helped you have that contemplation or contemplate on those things more. I think that's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, that's why that's why I told you guys I identified with Jin so much, and that's why I hate a fucking uncle so much, just because he just doesn't goddamn listen ever, and
Right.
it hits a few personal strings with me.
Sure. Yeah.
That he
Like
just refuses to fucking hear you, and you want to just strangle him.
I think that's a sign of good art, right? That
Oh,
forces you
absolutely.
to have those introspective.
It makes you more introspective than you think it
Yeah,
will for a video game, man.
Well, and that's I think that's the beauty of the medium of video games is you're not just passively consuming something as you do when you watch TV or
right.
watch a movie. Is you're playing these actions out, and it's forcing you to kind of work through some of these emotions and things.
Yeah,
And a lot of times gamers get a bad rap. They go, "Oh, just a lazy gamer, just sit on the couch playing video games."
yeah. This
But
breaks all that.
it does, and yeah, there's certainly some games you can play where you kind of fall into that stereotype and whatnot.
Oh, GTA is
But
definitely one of those games.
but this game in particular, it tells a story, and it really, I mean, and like what you said, it drew up these emotions in you because of not of what the game was just beating you down with because of exposition, but all the experiences you had along the way. So, Woodsy, when I say to you, what are your thoughts on for Ghost of Tsushima? What comes to mind?
I mean, I know I kind of said this my piece on this bit on a prior episode, so I'll keep it short and sweet. I thought it's a masterpiece of a game. It is my favorite game of last generation, even though I played it technically the whole thing front to back on PS5. And that I have not played The Last of Us 2 and Uncharted 4 yet, so I have some sins. Or Final Fantasy. We'll talk about that later. Um,
Oh, I need to jump into that too.
but it's it's one of my favorite games, and I also have a bias because I've always had a fascination with Japanese the feudal history of Japan and the Japanese samurai. So um,
Same.
yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So it was not without flaw.
For
Um,
those, yeah, obviously.
but is any game ever really? No.
Right, and they're so minor. Like I hope no one takes our bitching like as in like it's a major detractor for the game.
Right. Right.
Just a simple. They're very simple minor criticisms that are so low on the list of detracting from the game.
Right.
But,
The overall, right?
Right.
Yeah.
The positives
yeah,
are like way
I
up
think.
here, and we're talking down here.
Right.
Well, that's why we've dedicated almost an entire episode's worth of
And for
time
me,
2 hours.
to
love
this
it.
game,
We were
and
gonna go H and the P.
we were. Um, so for me, I've always been very, I'm the single player game, and I love a third person action game where the storyline, is as amazing it is. D touched on it earlier. Um, the NPCs that you come across where it just doesn't quite hit you across the face with story exposition, but these little conversations you have, or even like when you're not in a cutscene, but you're riding on your horse and you're talking to Yuna or you're talking to Mazuko or whoever, and these things come out kind of organically, where if you're not paying attention, you'd miss it, or if you're listening and you really ingest it, it really kind of hits home. Um, it's such
We didn't
good
even talk
character.
about their fight earlier either.
No, we didn't. We didn't. I forgot to touch on that. But these these characters and the way they're built out is just so phenomenal. The combat's amazing. The it's just such a great game to play. I can't speak highly enough of this game. So I'm glad, Woodsy, that you were kind of the first one to kind of like the match with this game, and I'm glad I played it, and I'm glad D played through it because I know D, you don't play a whole lot of single player games through. Um,
It's fair.
I'm very happy we took this time to kind of hash out
And
this
we'll
conversation.
Once in a while, I'll grab one. Like I crushed Fallout 4, I crushed
Platinum
Destiny
did.
2 for whatever.
Spider-Man, you platinum.
Yeah,
Yeah, you will go
Spider-Man.
itching to pee once in a while. So
Once in a
I'm
while.
glad.
It's
I'm
a
It
good
glad-
one.
was my first real cherry. It was my first real cherry.
No, I wish you went to platinum. My name is Neo, and this could have been your first.
No,
platinum.
I had to pop that cherry to get to the real cherry.
Just the tip. Okay, so we can't speak highly enough. It comes with a Raw Cuts Gaming stamp of approval. So
All right.
I'm starting to rapidly lose my voice here.
Yes,
so
I hear that. So we're gonna skip Trophy Hunter tonight, and we're just gonna wrap this up. We'll do Trophy Hunter next time. We're already at 2 hours, boys.
All right, D, hold on. We do have to talk about. Do you want to talk about your barbecue? We talk about that next week. We should
Let's skip it.
game though, real quick. So the poll results. It was a tie between Spider-Man Miles Morales and Final Fantasy VII Remake. I've decided I will be playing both.
Woo! So how many streams is that going to be?
8.
Never cross the streams. I learned that from Ghostbusters.
Is that 2 a week? 2 a week?
I bought a shit ton more games yesterday. I'll discuss those next week.
Was he? The pile grows.
And one of the things we're talking about adding is a new segment called, we don't know what we're going to quite call it yet, but Dry Age Recuts. It'll be a segment about the games that we think about that we're like, oh, heavy nostalgia base. Do we want those as a remake? Do we really?
Ooh.
I'm going to replay them.
Will remaking it ruin it?
Or, will it ruin it for me? Or
That's a good. I don't mind. Yeah, that's. I like
little
it.
tease for future episodes. So with that concludes our 34th episode of the Raw Cuts Gaming Podcast.
I'm tired.
We thank you, the listener, for tuning into all of our uncut takes and all things video games. If you'd like to join us, we encourage you to join us each and every week for more Raw Cuts Gaming. If you'd like to be a part of the conversation, reach out to us on Twitter at Raw Cuts Gaming. We're on YouTube. Check us out there, Raw Cuts Gaming. So D, if people want to get a hold of you, where can people find you?
Naked Gamer 84 on Twitters, and Noob with the zeros _ Naked Gamer on the Twitch.
Woodsy, I don't know where people can find you, but if you're not banned, currently, if people want to find
Currently reinstated on Twitter.
Your hot takes, your Twitter beef makes, where can people find you?
they can find me at George Clooney Likes Fast Cars.
Poor man's George Clooney. At poor man's George Clooney.
You can find me at Woods _ Wads with a Z.
And on the Twitches, where can people find you?
Raw Cuts Gaming.
Don't forget to send us porn. rawcutsgaming@gmail.com.
He is right. The email that we've only gotten we've
Porn
gotten live notifications at. And if you want to find me, your resident trophy hunting host who's losing his voice, you can find me on Twitter at CJ Reindl.
Go drink some water, CJ. Peace.
Peace.
Recording